is a wooden puzzle box. This steel room...
Let me video. It's this guy. Oh man, this is gonna be cringe. I can already tell. Oh my.
From Twitter.
Oh my fucking god. This is just, bro. Please don't, man. Dude, I'm literally investigating a character. Okay, I asked for a clip.
I had a guest actually come on this podcast before Jimmy Carr.
Why is he just like a podcast guy or something? I don't get it. Guys, how do you?
Jimmy Carr was on 2 weeks ago, and we had a great conversation about happiness and the nature.
I don't give a shit that much. Okay. Let me something that isn't cringe. It's this.
I don't know, man. I just can't seem to get over her.
Oh man, I mean, have you tried seeing other people?
If you can't play Dark and Darker play...
I don't know, man.
I don't even know what I'm looking at. Okay, he was a professor. He got radicalized. I think this is gonna de-radicalize him because he used to be pretty rational. Okay, that's not how debates work. You can't. Yeah, that's not. Debates don't.
University of Toronto psychology professor Jordan Peterson has a fight on his hands.
In the past 2 years, the Canadian psychologist and academic has been
Why, he's from
adopted as a
Canada.
hero of the Donald Trump-loving alt-right.
This is what I'm saying to you. Why the...
Guys, what is an alt-right? I don't know what that is, man. Dude, what is the alt-right? Okay. In the US, a right-wing ideology movement characterized by a rejection of mainstream politics and the use of online media to disseminate provocative content, often expressing opposition to racial, religious, and gender equality. Jesus.
Rage, bruh. You're doing well, but you're a mean, mad white man.
It shows that this guy has an agenda.
I was Jordan Peterson's strongest supporter. Now, I think he's dangerous.
I mean, he's...
I feel there isn't a lot of debates that you're gonna say, oh, you're a something like skin color man, like that. And
the world is going to come to an end, and he is going to save us. Jordan is a self-styled...
Well, I just think it's kind of irrelevant in most contexts. Okay.
I've been talking a lot to the crowds that I've been talking to, not about rights, but about responsibility.
Political streamer.
Because you can't have...
Bro, it's not political. I'm literally, dude, I'm investigating some...
What are you doing? You can't have the conversation
You about this guy
rights without the conversation about responsibility, because your rights are my responsibility. That's what they are, technically. Well, what are you leaving out if you're leaving out responsibility? And the answer might be, well, maybe you're leaving out the meaning of life. That's what it looks like to me. It's like, here you are, suffering away. What makes it worthwhile? Rights? You know, you're completely out. You have no idea what it's almost impossible to describe how bad an idea that is.
Is it philosophy?
Responsibility. That's what gives life meaning. It's like lift a load. Then you can tolerate yourself, right? Because look at, you're useless, easily hurt, easily killed. Why should you have any self-respect?
What you're saying, it just sounds a bit grim, doesn't it?
No.
No?
No, it sounds a lot grim. It's not a bit grim.
So
it's as grim as it gets.
Cool.
It's like...
So, okay, interesting.
So here you go. So you tell young people, and this is another message for conservatives, from the Wonderlic people. They're a commercial company that makes
IQ and the job market.
Makes general cognitive ability tests. And it's often used by corporations, even though it's actually illegal. It's actually illegal to use IQ tests, but the Wonderlic doesn't.
The reason why it's illegal to use IQ tests is because they're useless. There's no reason to use IQ tests are bad. They're a well-known thing. It's a well-known thing in the field of psychology that IQ tests are a literal joke. Okay, they aren't a measure of anything. Okay, nobody uses them for shit. Okay, they're shit.
Promote themselves as testing IQ. I think it's general cognitive ability, which is the same thing, but whatever. The SATs, the GREs, the LSATs, all of those are IQ tests. So now they're more crystallized than fluid, and we'll get to that in a minute. But crystallized knowledge is what you accrue across time. So you could say that fluid intelligence is what programs your brain. It fills it with facts, let's say. It fills it with knowledge. And then, but you can get an estimate of your intelligence by sampling your domain of factual knowledge. And the reason for that is that, well, obviously, the better the programmer, the better the content. And so what that also means is that you could, if your prefrontal cortex was damaged later in life, your fluid IQ could plummet, but your crystallized IQ remain more or less intact. So even though they're not different, one produces the other, and then once the producer has produced, then the producer can disappear, and you still got the
content, though.
knowledge.
You said content then.
So at least that's how it looks to me. So, okay, so how smart do you have to be different things in life? Well, if you have an IQ of 116 to 130, which is 85th percentile in the...
That's me right there, by the way. I'm not kidding. This is actually me. Attorney, business, editor, advertising manager, chemist, engineer, executive. I'm an executive of a major company. I'm actually, if you talk about an empire.
5th percentile and above, so it's 1 person in 8 up to 1 person in 130, I believe is 85, 90, 95? Is it 95? I think it's 95. 1 person in 8 to 1 person in 20. Then you can be a attorney, a research analyst, an editor, an advertising manager, a chemist, an engineer, an executive manager, etc. That's the, now, that's not the high end for IQ, by the way. You know, that it can go up, well, it can go up indefinitely, although there's fewer and fewer people.
Chad, do people call them out on the usage of IQ tests and their like
as it goes up? So if you want to be the best at what you're doing, bar none, then having an IQ of above 145 is a necessity, and maybe you're pushing 160 in some situations, and maybe that's making you 1 person in 10,000 or even 1 person in 100,000. And then also, to really be good at it, you probably have to be reasonably stress tolerant and also somewhat conscientious. So you know, people, well, you think, well, why is it that smart people are at the top of dominance hierarchies? And the answer to that in part is because they get there first, right? I mean, everything's a race, roughly speaking. And the faster you are, the more likely you are to be at the forefront of the pack. And intelligence in large part is speed. That's not all of it is. So if you're moving towards something difficult rapidly, the faster people are going to get there first. So IQ of 110 to 115. So that's 85th to 73rd to 85th percentile. Copywriter, accountant, manager, sales manager. Sales
110 only.
Analyst, general manager, purchasing agent, registered nurse, sales account executive. If you look at universities,
what if you're intelligent, but you have one of these jobs? Then what?
Smartest people are, they're above this. Who are the smartest people at university? What do you think?
I think he's saying nothing.
Mathematicians, physicists and mathematicians, right, right. I could tell you who's on the other end, but I won't. Yeah, I'd like to.
Brain rotted.
Anyway, anyways, okay. Going down the, now what? 103 to 108 is slightly above average, right? 60th to 70th percentile. Store manager, bookkeeper, credit clerk, lab tester, general sales, telephone sales, accounting clerk, computer operator, customer service rep, technician, clerk, typist. So you see at this level, people have some technical skill and some ability to deal with complex things. Okay, that's dead average. 100 is average. Dispatcher in a general office, police patrol officer, receptionist, cashier, general clerical, inside sales clerk, meter reader, printer, teller, data entry, electrical helper.
Okay.
95th to 98. It goes worse. Machinist, food department manager, quality control checker, security guard, unskilled labor, maintenance, arc welder, die setter, mechanic.
Jesus.
Good IQ range for relatively qualified tradespeople. 87 to 93. Messenger, factory production worker, assembler, food service worker, nurse's aide, warehouseman, custodian, janitor, material handler, packer. Now, what you're starting to see is that as you move down the hierarchy, the jobs get simpler. They're more likely to be assigned by other people, or they're repetitive. Because what IQ predicts to some degree is how rapidly you can learn something. But once you've learned it, it doesn't predict how necessarily how well you do at it. And so the more repetitive jobs people with lower IQs are more suited.
I got it right? So then it's crystallized. On top of that, there's no new patterns, so there's no fluidity to it. If you learn something once, there's no other data, you're just doing it.
More repetitive jobs. Under 87, is there something? Well, no. Right. That's a big problem. And it's something our society has not addressed at all.
Oh, what is that?
Jobs for people with IQs of less than 85 are very, very rare. So what the hell are those people supposed to do? It's like it's 15% of the population. What are they supposed to do? Well, we better figure it out, because one of the things that's happening too is that as the high IQ
bro, you give them the computer, they boot up a Windows, okay, and they boot up Twitch.tv. They do sign up, make an account, okay, they get a webcam given to them by their peer or their guardian, and they put that bitch ass on, they put it up, and they open up OBS, and they do this, they do stop stream, or that, no, okay, it would be stop, normally it would be start stream, okay, it would be start stream, but in their case, they have to start it first, and they would be start, and then they click it, and then they do what I do.
Geeks get a hold of the world, the demand for cognitive power is increasing, not decreasing, right? You want to be a teller? Well, you know, those checkout machines, they're not so simple. You want to work at McDonald's? You think that's a simple job? You don't see robots working at McDonald's. And the reason for that is that what McDonald's workers do is too complex for robots to do. So...
Wait. What?
Well, so this is a discussion that no one wants to have, but that's okay. It's still a problem.
Wait.
And
what?
it has to be dealt with. So the US government, I think I told you this at one point already, it's illegal to induct anyone into the US Army if they have an IQ of less than 83, right? It's about 10% of the population. Because the US Army, and they've been doing IQ testing since IQ testing began, because they want everybody they can possibly get into the Army, because in peacetime, they use it as a way of moving people up the socioeconomic ladder, and in wartime, well, obviously, you need as many soldiers as you can get your hands on. And so you're not going to be any pickier than you have to be. So when the US Army says it's illegal to induct anybody into...
with hot dog fingers and that elephant man looking ass nose, basketball-sized Adam's apple looking ass, slim body and square face Minecraft Alex looking ass.
Okay.
To the armed forces, if they have an IQ of less than 83, then you know that they've done it for absolute necessity, right? And when people have made a finding that contradicts what they want to hear and they're doing it out of absolute necessity, you can be reasonably true that it's one of those facts that just won't bloody well go away. And so you might think, well, if there's nothing for someone with an IQ of less than 83 to do in the Army, what makes you think that there's something that they can do in the general population?
Chat,
and then
I think this is one of those guys, like Andrew Tate, who has a lot of like knowledge about some shit, right? And he says a lot of true shit, right? That sounds inspirational, it's kind of true shit, and says a lot of dog shit also, right? So then you're being introduced to the good stuff, that the good knowledge, whatever, and then you're getting smoked by dog shit on the way out.
The issue is, you know, because the conservatives will say, well, they should just work harder. It's like, sorry, that ain't going to fly. And the liberals will say, well, there's no difference between people anyhow, and you can just train people to do everything. That's wrong. So they're both wrong, and they're seriously wrong. And the fact that neither side...
Guys, don't give up, chat. You got this, chat. Guys, I know sometimes things get hard. You push a little bit harder. You're almost there. I believe in you, chat. You guys are so good. You're almost right there, man. Please don't give up. You're almost right there. All men are absolutely fucking ugly and dumb. All of them. Okay, done.
If the political perspective will take a good, cold, hard look at this problem, means that we're going to increasingly have
You get it now, though? You get it now?
Structural problem in our societies, because we're complexifying everything so rapidly that you can't find employment unless, increasingly, unless you're intelligent. You guys are really going to face this, you know. Lawyers are disappearing like mad. And the reason for that is, you can look it up online. Increasingly, you can do things yourself if you're smart. And so, like, the working class people have been wiped out pretty nicely over the last 30 years by automation and various other things. It's the low end of the white-collar class that's coming up next. So I'm not saying that lawyers are in the low end, but low-end lawyers are in the low end of the white-collar class. So there's still going to be plenty of positions for people who are creative and fast on their feet and super smart. In fact, those people are going to have all the money, and that's already happening to a great degree. You know,
you're saying someone is trash, but like I said, I'm pretty sure this is just like I'm pretty sure this is. I don't think he's running about stuff that he doesn't know about.
No, because if you're smart and you can use a computer, you're so smart it's just absolutely unbelievable, right? And if you can't use a computer, and lots of people, and I don't mean you can open Word. That isn't what I mean. I mean, maybe I mean you can program, and if you can't program, well, you're right at the next end. So if you haven't got that with you, you're going to be left behind. Oh, a lot of them will take Demerol. That's what's happening in the United States. Yeah, it's an opiate.
Bro, this Mulder thinks anybody wants to watch him. Look, he puts the tip on the camera because he doesn't want to look at. Bro, everybody wants to look at you, bro. Shut the fuck up.
Yeah, so there's a massive drug problem emerging in.
WTF 35 months.
I'm joking.
Yeah, no, I'm telling you, that is what's happening.
Relax.
Yes, drugs. Yeah, drugs of abuse.
Fucking heckler, dude. What is that? Okay. I get it now, though. But what is it? It's controversial. I don't get it. Oh, there it is. Why do nice guys finish last? There it is. Certainly this is going to be controversial.
If you ask a disagreeable person what he wants, say, or she wants, they'll tell you right away. They know. It's like, this is what I want. And
wait, 11 million views. People watch this shit.
This is how I'm going to get it. But agreeable people, especially if they're really agreeable, are so agreeable that they often don't even know what they want, because they're so accustomed to living for other people and to finding out what other people want and to trying to make them comfortable and so forth, that it's harder for them to find a sense of their own desires as they move through life. And that's not, look, there's situations where that's advantageous, but it's certainly not advantageous if you're going to try to forge yourself a career. That just doesn't work at all. And so, even though on average men and women aren't that much different in terms of their levels of agreeableness by the group, if you go out and you look at the extremes, they're very different. So all of the most agreeable.
Okay, it looks like I watched it before because I click links twice, okay, to check them. So make sure they're not bad first. So whenever you sit at the bar, it has a red thing, and it goes, it's either all the way through, or at the minimum, it's either of these on YouTube. It's not a glitch, it's how it is.
Agreeable people are women, and all of the most disagreeable people are men. And the thing is, the extremes are often what matter, rather than what's in the middle.
Guys,
and so one of the ways that's reflected.
Everybody knows this. Guys, even the videos that came out 10 minutes ago are already pre-watched, because they are not pre-watched.
In society, by the way, is there's way more men in prison. And the best personality predictor of being imprisoned is to be low in agreeableness. It makes you callous. Now, you might think, well, what's the opposite of compassion and politeness? And the answer to that is, I think it's best sort of conceptualized as a trading game. So let's say that we're going to play repeated trading games. And if you're very agreeable, then you're going to bargain harder on my behalf than you're going to bargain on your own behalf. Whereas if you're very disagreeable, you're going to do the reverse. You're going to think, I'm in this trading game for me, and you're going to take care of your own interests.
Okay,
where an agreeable person is going to say, no, at best, this is,
I agree, I guess.
At worst, this has to be 50-50, but I'd like to help you every way I can. One of the things you have to be careful of if you're agreeable is not to be exploited, because you'll line up to be exploited. And I think the reason for that is because you're wired to be exploited by infants. And so that just doesn't work so well in that actual world. And one of the things that happens very often in psychotherapy, people come to psychotherapy for multiple reasons, but one of them is they often come because they're too agreeable. And so what they get is so-called assertiveness training, although it's not exactly assertiveness that's being trained. What it is the ability to learn how to negotiate on your own behalf. And one of the things I tell agreeable people, especially if they're conscientious, is say what you think. Tell the truth about what you think. There's going to be things you think are nasty and harsh. And they probably are nasty and harsh, but they're also probably true.
True.
And you need to bring those up to the forefront and deliver the message. And it's not straightforward at all, because agreeable people do not like conflict. Not at all. They smooth the water. And you can see why that is.
Chat,
in
I'm not like that, am I?
Hypothesis that
I'm disagreeable most of the
time.
You
don't want conflict around infants. It's too damn dangerous. You don't want fights to break out. You don't want anything to disturb the relative peace. And if you're also more prone to being hurt physically and perhaps emotionally, you're also maybe loath to engage in the kind of high-intensity conflict that will solve problems in the short term, because it takes a lot of conflict to solve problems in the short term. And if that can spiral up to where it's dangerous, which it can if it gets uncontrolled, it might be safer in the short term to keep the water smooth and to not delve
What
into
does that have anything to do with nice guys? I'm at 3 minutes. I didn't see a single thing about
those
this shit.
situations where conflict emerges. The problem with that is it's
Oh
not
my
a very
God.
good medium to long-term strategy, right? Because lots of times there are things you have to talk about because they're not going to go away. And the advantage to having a well-socialized, disagreeable person is that they really don't let much get in their way. So if you can get a kid who's disagreeable socialized, that person can be quite the creature, you know, because they're very forward-moving in their nature and very difficult to stop.
Okay,
But if you don't
I'm
get
kind of
them
like that, I feel like
successfully
that.
domesticated, tamed, roughly speaking, by the time they're 4, their peers reject them. And that's a big problem because your job as a parent is to make your child socially desirable by the age of 4. Like
Oh, I'm disagreeable. Okay, I'm not done.
you want to burn that into your brain because people don't know that. That's your job. And here's why. It's easy if you think about it carefully. So you imagine you've got a 3-year-old child, so sort of halfway through that initial period of socialization, and you take that child out in public. Okay,
Right.
What do you want for the child? Who cares about you? What do you want from for the child? You want the child to be able to interact with other children and adults so that the children are welcoming and smile and want to play with him or her. And so the adults are happy to see the child and treat him or her properly. And if your child's a horrible little monster because you're afraid of disciplining them or you don't know how to do that properly, then what they're going to do is they're going to experience nothing but rejection from other children and false smiles from other parents and adults. And so then you're throwing the child out there into a world where every single face that they see is either hostile or
fake.
lying.
Yeah, okay, makes
And that's
sense, yeah.
not something that's going to be particularly conducive to the mental health or the well-being of your child. If your child can learn a couple
Well, it's
simple
gonna be
rules
hardwired,
of behavior, like don't interrupt adults when they're talking too much and pay attention and try not to hit the other kids over the head with the truck any more than is absolutely necessary, then and share and play properly, then when they meet other kids, the kids are going to try out a few little play routines on them, and that's going to go well, and then they're going to go off and socialize each other for the rest of their lives. Because that's what happens, is that from 4 years old onwards, the primary socialization with children takes place
But what if you have 2 children, and then they can sort of pseudo-socialize with them? Does that not help?
among other children. And so if the kids don't get in on that early, they don't move into that developmental spiral upwards and they're left behind. And you can imagine how terrible that is, because a 4-year-old will not play with another 4-year-old who's 2. But a 5-year-old certainly will not play with a 5-year-old who's 2, right? Because the gap is just starting to get unbelievably large. And so the kids start out behind, and then the peers leave them behind, and then those kids are alienated and outside the peer group for the rest of their life. Well, those are the ones that grow up to be long-term antisocial, right? They're already aggressive. It doesn't dip down.
Yeah, I think it means the social age, the age that you display to another person or another child. So if you display a certain age to another child, he's not going to want to play with you, whatever the fuck, because you're displaying an age that they feel is not the same, so it's not interesting for them. They're not going to want
Now, what happens to normal boys, roughly speaking? Imagine the aggressive 2-year-old types. They get socialized, so their level of aggression goes down, and then they hit puberty and testosterone kicks in, and bang, levels of aggression go back up. And so that's why males are criminals between the ages roughly of 16 and about 25.
Oh my God, man, that's
so it matches the creativity curve, by the way.
Oh my God, boys, we are out, man.
It's so cool.
We are
If you
out
look
of this
at
shit, man.
the spike of creativity
Holy
among men,
fuck,
16
man.
to 25, and it starts to go down. Criminality matches that absolutely perfectly. So that's quite cool. So the testosterone levels raise the average level of aggression among men. It's more dominance than aggression, actually, and testosterone is by no means all bad. And then it starts to decrease at about age 25 or 26, which is usually when men stop staying up late at night, stop drinking as much, develop a full-time career, and take on the burdens and responsibilities and opportunities that are associated with a long-term partner and family. And so, well, so that's the development of what I would call predatory aggression, because I also think that the agreeableness distribution is probably something like predatory aggression versus maternal sympathy. It's something like that. So
Bro,
if you look at other mammals that are predators, because we're predators as well as prey animals. If you look at other animals like bears.
Wait, he's scoping me, he's low T? Bro, I'm like massive high T. It's like a thing.
The male bear has absolutely nothing to do with the raising of the infants. In fact, the female bears will keep the male the hell away because he's likely to kill the infants and maybe even to eat them. So there's no maternality at all in solitary male mammalian predators. It's really useful to investigate the viewpoints of people who have opposing views to yours.
Bro!
Because they'll tell you things.
How is this telling me that nice guys finish last?
Not only will they tell you things you don't know, they'll also tell you how to see the world in ways that you don't see it. And they'll also have skills that you don't have, that you could develop. So for example, if you're an introverted person, it's very useful to watch an extroverted person because the extroverted person has ways of being in the social world that aren't natural to you, that you can use as to improve your toolkit. And if you're
See, check guys, I'm not that dumb. Guys, it's why I told you guys the day when I went on that date, okay? I was like, hey man, you're like really good. And they were like, good at what? I'm like, you know, I don't know what to say because I didn't know what to say. And I was like, you know, good at like being a normal person or whatever the fuck. Because I was observing an extrovert.
Social world that aren't natural to you, that you can use as to improve your toolkit. And if you're disagreeable, one of the best things to do with disagreeable people, especially if that's alienating them from other people, for example, because it can.
What?
You know, people treat you like you're a selfish, arrogant son of a, maybe that's because you are. It's like, okay, so what do you do about that? One of the most promising treatments, let's say for that, is get the person to do something for someone else once a day, just as a practice, and learn how to do it. Maybe you can wake the circuit up, you know, if you think that it's lying dormant in you, which is probably right. You know, I think we have a very wide range of propensities within us. Some are switched on, genetic propensities. Some are switched on, but I think that if you put yourself in the right situation or walk yourself through the right exercises, you can switch some of these other things on as well. But it takes work and dedication and discipline. I would say generally...
Yeah, but I would wonder about this topic though. Can you really switch them on forever? Or do you have to always switch them on manually all the time? Some things are hardwired or crystallized, as you say, right? Are sometimes things hardwired so hard that like they'll never be on it?
Generally speaking, if you want to adapt yourself properly to life, you should find a niche in the environment that corresponds with your temperament. Right? You shouldn't work at cross purposes to your temperament because it's just too damn difficult. But having done that, then you should work on developing the skills and viewpoints.
Guys, I tried this when playing League, not to get banned. I had 6 accounts banned until I got my 7th. I was like, I'm gonna be nice. I'm gonna be nice this time. I'm gonna give my teammates compliments, and I'm not saying anything when they do bad. And I would go like, hey man, you did really good gank. I mean, at one point I kept doing it, and it wouldn't do anything for me because at one point I morphed that behavior into being like, I would do the exact opposite. Someone would fail a gank, I would say, hey man, really nice gank, you did really good for our team. And someone would like feed mid, and I'd be like, wow man, you're doing great out there, man. Thanks for fucking propelling our team forward. Shit like that. I would just I would be so toxic to them in that way, you know what I'm saying? Like I banned again.
Exist in the space opposite to your personality, because that's where you're fundamentally underdeveloped. And that way I think you can extend out your temperamental capability across a wider range. And to me, that's roughly equivalent as bringing a richer toolkit to each situation. You know, so if you're hyper extroverted, you should probably learn to shut up at parties now and then and listen just to see what's going on, to see if you can manage it, you know.
What do you say? So if you're hyper extroverted, you should probably learn to shut up.
Learn to shut up at parties now and then and listen just to see what's going on, to see if you can manage it, you know. And if you're introverted, well, then you should
Well, then you're sacrificing your own enjoyment for things. Then people think it might get really boring. Now, people that might get really boring in that case.
Learn how to speak in public and to learn how to go to parties without hiding in the corner and saying nothing to anyone. You know, and if you're agreeable, then you need to learn how to be disagreeable so people can't push you around. And if you're disagreeable, you need to learn how to be agreeable so that you're not an evil son of a bitch. So, and the same thing applies even in the conscientious domain. It's like if you're too conscientious, you need to learn to relax and let go a little bit. And if you're unconscientious, it's time like, get out the Google Calendar, man, and start scheduling your day, right? And beat yourself on the back of the head with a stick until you're disciplined enough so that you can actually stick to something for some length of time and not living in absolute squalor, which is something that would characterize someone who's very disorderly, for example, because they don't notice. It doesn't bother them, disorder. It's like, maybe they can see it, but it doesn't have any emotional valence, and so it doesn't have any motivational significance. You know, so the other thing you might want to think about too, if you're choosing a partner.
Shut up, bitch.
Try not to choose someone who's too distant from you on the temperamental variables, because you're going to have a hard time bridging the gap. You know, it's hard for an introverted person and an extroverted person to coexist. And it's really hard for an orderly person and a disorderly person to coexist, because they will drive each other nuts. Why don't you pick up? Why are you so obsessed by it? That's the basic argument.
Yeah, but aren't you turning that light on, though, that's dormant, on both sides, though, constantly, until you reach some sort of stance of awakening a little bit? Wouldn't you be trading lights at that point and sort of having some sort of net positive?
So it's useful to know about your temperament so that you can negotiate the space with your partner as well. And I don't think you should try to find someone who's exactly the same as you, because then you don't have the benefits of the alternative viewpoint. But you got to watch it, because you may hit irreconcilable differences of various sorts. And I've seen that most particularly among couples who are high and low in openness. That's a rough one. And also high and low in conscientiousness. That's another rough one, because they just cannot see how the other person sees the world at all.
I can't tell if I'm having some sort of education here or some sort of radiculation at this point. I don't know the difference. I can't tell. I cannot tell. Am I being educationed or radiculationed? Which one is it? Guys, this is hard because people who know shit.
How about making the...
Oh no, I'm not gonna watch that. Oh no. Okay, I'm done with that.